It is 2025. Donald Trump is back in the White House. Trade tensions are rising again. Tariff threats are no longer political drama. They are real economic pressure tools. At different moments, Trump has even talked about Canada becoming the 51st state. Whether that was serious or strategic messaging, it created shockwaves in Ottawa. At the same time, the future of the USMCA trade agreement is uncertain. For decades, Canada built its prosperity next to the world's largest economy. Geography was comfort. Proximity was power. But now the question is different. If your closest ally becomes unpredictable, do you stay dependent or do you prepare alternatives? Something bigger is happening beneath the surface. And it is changing Canada's global position in a very serious way.
Canada's Prime Minister Mark Carney wants to create the world's largest trade alliance, which does not include America. Edward Lawrence at the White House. Edward, I'm sure President Trump is not happy with this.
Yeah, let's just say it has the attention of the White House. A White House official pointing out to me that 80% of the Canadian population lives within 100 miles of the U.S. border, and 75% of the Canadian exports come to the United States. That official also adding that it's in Canada's best interest to improve trade relations with the United States rather than fight sheer economic growth. The Canadian Prime Minister so far, though, going the other direction. Prime Minister Mark Carney negotiated a tariff deal with China that allows more Chinese imports into Canada. The Canadian Prime Minister leading conversations to link the Trans-Pacific Partnership 11-country bloc with the European Union 27 member states to create a rival trading bloc to the U.S. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith tells me Canada wants to protect itself.
For decades, Canada's economic model was simple. Produce, export south, grow together. The numbers are powerful. 75% of exports going to one country is not just trade, it is deep structural dependence. It means factories, farmers, truckers, and ports are connected to one market. It means one policy shift in Washington can send shockwaves through Canadian jobs and industries. So when Mark Carney moves toward building a massive trade alliance without America, it looks bold. Some may call it risky. But look deeper. Dependency is comfortable, until it becomes leverage. When tariffs become negotiation weapons, when agreements are questioned publicly, when political rhetoric creates uncertainty, responsible leadership begins planning alternatives. This is not emotional reaction. This is risk management at a national level. Economic sovereignty does not mean cutting ties. It means reducing vulnerability. Canada is not walking away from the United States. It is widening its options. Diversification is not rebellion. It is insurance. History shows that over-reliance on one partner limits strategic freedom. If 75% of exports go to one destination, that destination has enormous influence. Carney understands markets. He understands global finance. He knows that long-term resilience requires multiple pillars, not one single support beam. Is this reckless, or is it long-term survival thinking? When uncertainty increases, smart countries do not panic. They prepare. And preparation sometimes looks like boldness.
Prime Minister says this is something that has been hiding in plain sight for months. But if it does come together, it would be the second largest trading bloc in the world. Prime Minister Mark Carney confirms Canada has begun discussions with countries from both the European Union and a collection of Pacific nations with an eye to making a larger trading bloc.
This idea changes scale completely. A potential bloc of 39 countries and 1.5 billion people is not symbolic diplomacy. It is structural economic redesign. When middle powers coordinate, they create collective weight. The European Union already represents one of the largest markets in the world. Pacific trade partners add dynamic growth economies. Together, this forms an alternative center of gravity. This is not anti-America. This is pro-survival. In geopolitics, options equal power. If Canada can trade freely across Europe and the Pacific at scale, it reduces single market exposure. It strengthens bargaining power. It gives Ottawa leverage in negotiations with Washington without shouting or threatening. Carney spoke in Davos about middle powers working together. That was not random language. It was strategic thinking. The world is becoming more divided, more protectionist, and more competitive. In such a world, smaller advanced economies survive by building coalitions. Will this make Washington uncomfortable? Possibly. Large trading blocs shift influence. But diplomacy is not about pleasing one partner at the expense of national resilience. It is about balance. Canada is not abandoning North America. It is expanding its economic architecture. And even if such a bloc takes years to fully form, the signal itself matters. It tells markets, investors, and allies that Canada is thinking long-term. It tells domestic industries that new doors are opening. Strategic patience often looks slow at first, but when built carefully, it reshapes the global map.
We have a very integrated market with the United States, but We also know that we have an opportunity to be able to provide support to our friends and allies, whether it's on energy security or food security or any of a number of other products. And so the United States enjoys robust trade relationships with the world, and Canada does too.
Now, President Donald Trump taking offense to the Canadian trading moves while hinting he might not renew the USMCA North American trading bloc.
Negotiations often are tough and contentious, but the reality is that Canada's side, the president has used tariffs and his rhetoric and his negotiation style to now secure over a dozen historic trade deals that have leveled the playing field for American workers. And we're starting to see our exports surge and our trade deficits decrease.
The United States and Canada share one of the most integrated economic relationships in the world. Supply chains cross the border multiple times before a product is finished. Energy grids are linked. Agriculture flows daily. No serious leader in Ottawa wants to destroy that reality. But integration does not mean submission. When tariffs are used aggressively as negotiation tools, smaller partners must adjust. Trump's style is direct, transactional, and unpredictable. He believes in leverage. Canada understands this clearly. Agriculture has long been a tension point, especially dairy. Alcohol markets are another sensitive issue. When U.S. leaders push hard in these areas, Canadian policymakers must defend domestic industries while keeping overall relations stable. That balance is delicate. When your biggest customer becomes unpredictable, what do? You prepare, you diversify, you strengthen alternative markets so that no single negotiation can corner your economy. This is not emotional confrontation. It is calculated hedging. Hedging reduces shock. It protects workers from sudden tariff waves. It reassures investors that Canada has multiple growth paths. It prevents political pressure from turning into economic crisis. The future of USMCA remains uncertain. Even the possibility of renegotiation creates anxiety in financial markets. By building parallel trade relationships, Canada lowers that anxiety internally. It tells businesses, growth does not depend on one handshake. The global environment is not calm anymore. The war in Ukraine changed how democracies think about security. Supply chains can break overnight. Ammunition stockpiles can run low faster than expected. NATO members are under pressure to spend more. At the same time, the United States under President Trump has shown a more transactional approach to alliances. Protection is no longer assumed. It is negotiated. For decades, Canada relied on geography. 2 oceans, a powerful neighbor, a stable continent. But geography does not stop cyber attacks. It does not stop Arctic competition. It does not replace broken equipment. A hard question emerged quietly in Ottawa. What if security can no longer be outsourced? The answer now is turning into policy.
Well, Prime Minister Mark Carney has released a new defense strategy. The $6.6 billion plan aims to build more military equipment here in Canada, buy materials from Canadian firms, and to increase Canada's defense exports by 50%. That goal is also to create 125,000 new jobs by 2035. In his announcement, Carney said, quote, "We know that the world has changed and that Canada must change with it."
This strategy is about protecting Canada's sovereignty in its fullest sense. In other words, our ability to act independently in that more dangerous and divided world. And to be clear, this strategic autonomy doesn't mean isolation. It means being strong enough to be a partner of choice rather than a dependent.
$6.6 billion is not symbolic spending. It signals direction. Increasing defense exports by 50% is not minor adjustment. It is ambition. Creating 125,000 jobs by 2035 transforms defense from a narrow military issue into a national economic strategy. Strategic autonomy means having the ability to make decisions without waiting for permission. It does not mean isolation. It means strength. Sovereignty is not a slogan. It is supply chains. If you cannot produce critical equipment at home, you depend on others during crisis. And crisis rarely gives polite warnings. Defense investment also has multiplier effects. Advanced manufacturing drives research and development. High-end engineering jobs expand. Innovation hubs grow around military technology such as drones, artificial intelligence, and cybersecurity systems. This strengthens civilian industries as well. Defense is economic policy. Canada has long faced criticism for underinvesting in NATO commitments. Increasing spending aligns Ottawa more closely with alliance targets, while strengthening domestic industry. That balance is politically smart. It reassures allies while empowering local companies. Acting independently does not mean rejecting partnerships. It means entering partnerships from a position of strength. When Canada builds more at home, it negotiates better abroad. When it exports defense products, it gains influence and builds trusted relationships. This strategy shows something deeper. It reflects a world where uncertainty is permanent. Instead of hoping the environment improves, leadership is adapting to reality. Independence in defense is insurance against unpredictability. and insurance becomes valuable when storms are visible on the horizon.
The announcement took place right here at CAE in Montreal, a flight simulator company started nearly 80 years ago by a former Air Force officer. Prime Minister Mark Carney says Canada has for too long relied on geography and others to protect the country, that his plan overhauls that strategy in a changing world.
It means building a domestic defense industrial base so we are never hostage to the decisions of others.
For decades, Canada's greatest shield was location. Surrounded by oceans and allied with the United States, direct threats seem distant. But geography is no longer enough. Arctic routes are opening due to climate change. Russia and China are increasing activity in northern regions. Cyber warfare ignores borders completely. Relying on others for protection creates silent vulnerability. If a partner changes priorities, domestic readiness suffers. The phrase "never hostage to the decisions of others" is powerful. It reflects awareness that dependence can become pressure. Trump's rhetoric about Canada becoming the 51st state may have been political theater, but it carried symbolic weight. It reminded Canadians that sovereignty must be defended in practical ways, not just emotionally. Building a domestic defense industrial base strengthens psychological confidence as well as military capacity. Domestic manufacturing ensures faster response times. It protects intellectual property. It secures jobs inside the country. It prevents sudden supply interruptions. What happens if America turns inward? What happens if supply stops? These are not dramatic fantasies. They are strategic questions responsible governments must ask. Investing in defense industry also strengthens regional economies. Aerospace hubs in Quebec, shipbuilding in Atlantic provinces, advanced manufacturing in Ontario. These sectors gain stability from long-term contracts. That stability builds skills and innovation. Security policy is shifting from passive reliance to active preparation. That transformation is historic. It marks one of the most significant strategic adjustments since the Second World War. Not because Canada expects conflict tomorrow, but because it refuses to be unprepared if conditions worsen.
Its framework is simple: build, partner, buy. First, we will build in Canada and prioritize Canadian companies.
Canadian companies now provide roughly 1/3 of this country's military needs. Carney wants 70% over the next decade, and he wants to increase defense exports by 50%.
That's real growth.
That means prioritizing Canadian companies and raising domestic contribution from roughly 1/3 of military needs to 70% over the next decade. That is structural transformation. Partnership comes second. Canada is not closing doors. It is forming strategic agreements with trusted allies, fighter jet discussions with Sweden, submarine cooperation with South Korea, deepened ties with European defense networks. These arrangements include protecting intellectual property and ensuring jobs remain in Canada. Partnerships are designed to strengthen domestic capacity, not replace it. Buying comes last. When something cannot be built or partnered efficiently, Canada may purchase from abroad, but with reinvestment requirements. That keeps economic benefits inside the country. This is not panic policy. This is structural redesign. Procurement reform is essential because slow systems undermine ambition. Creating a defense investment agency to streamline processes addresses long-standing industry frustration. Speed and accountability increase effectiveness. When uncertainty rises, smart states invest. They modernize. They simplify systems. They align economic and security goals. Defense spending becomes a tool for national development rather than simple cost. Real growth in defense exports expands influence. Countries that buy Canadian systems become long-term partners. That strengthens diplomatic ties and global standing. Military capability and economic leverage begin to reinforce each other. The combination of trade diversification and defense independence reveals a coherent pattern. Reduce vulnerability, expand options, strengthen sovereignty, maintain alliances without dependency. Is Mark Carney confronting Donald Trump directly? Or is he preparing Canada for unpredictability in a changing world? Is this smart long-term planning that future generations will thank him for? Or is it a bold gamble in a tense geopolitical era? Canada stands at a crossroads. Economic independence, defense sovereignty, stronger ties with Europe and Pacific partners, a middle power building wider coalitions. Now I want to hear from you. Should Canada reduce its reliance on the United States? Is this the biggest strategic shift since World War II? Or is it an unnecessary risk? Share your opinion in the comments. Like the video if you found this analysis valuable. Subscribe for deeper strategic breakdowns, and share this discussion with others who care about Canada's future.